If you're looking to help achieve a very aggressive stance on your 2012 through 2018 Ram at home, but without even changing the wheels, well then adding the Supreme Suspension's 2-inch wheel spacers that we have here today, it's gonna be one of the easiest ways to do so. Now the hub-centric spacers will be made from quality T6 billet aluminum and will be sold in sets of 4 for right around $300. Installation, according to the site, is gonna get a solid 1 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, guys, and take about an hour or so to complete from start to finish. But hang with me for a bit, and we'll walk you through that job later in the video. So again, adding spacers is without a doubt one of the easiest ways to either gain clearance or make for a very aggressive stance. Now, if I had to guess, most truck owners watching this video are probably more interested in the stance or offset aspect as opposed to clearing a big brake kit or suspension components, but whatever the case, the Supreme spacers that we have here again today will help you in either situation. Now these particular options are pretty aggressive in the land of spacers overall, as they're gonna add a whopping 2 inches or 50 millimeters of additional offset to either your stock or your aftermarket wheels. Now this will obviously help you achieve a flush look with those stock wheels or allow you to go totally wild with a set of aftermarket wheels depending on your starting offset. For instance, if you're starting off with a plus 25 millimeter offset on a set of aftermarket wheels, well then these are now going to be a negative 25 millimeter offset. If you're starting with a 0 or neutral offset with a set of aftermarket wheels, well, now you're looking at negative 50 and a ton of poke. So just a couple things to keep in mind here, guys, when considering a spacer this aggressive. The end result will be very extreme overall. Now the spacers themselves have been made from high quality T6 billet aluminum and are anodized black and do feature the 5x139 factory bolt pattern found on the 12 through 18 year trucks. Now you're also going to be looking at the correct 77 millimeter hub size here for this particular generation Ram, so there's no need for any additional hub-centric rings or anything like that. Now the spacers are going to bolt to your existing hubs thanks to the included hardware, and will reuse the same M14x15 lug nuts as your factory studs, and those will also be torqued to 130 foot-pounds. But now we want to show you just what it takes to install a set of spacers onto your Ram at home. So without further ado, guys, feel free to check out our detailed walkthrough and tool breakdown right now.
Tools used for this install: pry bar, torque wrench, Loctite, 1/2 inch impact gun, lug nut flip socket, extension, 19 millimeter socket, and 1/2 to 3/8 adapter. Hey guys, I'm going to walk you through our wheel spacer installation on our Dodge Ram today. It's a pretty easy process, so let's get started. First thing we're going to do is use our jack to jack the vehicle, and then we're going to use a jack stand underneath the vehicle to support it. Then we can start removing our wheel. I'm going to jack up right on the frame in the front. Get the tire off the ground. Now we'll slide our jack stand underneath. You can slowly let the jack down. I like to leave the jack under with a little tension. It's just an extra safety precaution. That way the vehicle don't fall. Now that we have our truck supported with our jack stand and our jack, I'm going to start removing the lug nuts. I have an air impact gun, 21 millimeter socket. So we're going to start by taking the lugs off, then we'll remove the wheel and get the wheel out of the way. Now that I have all the lugs removed, we'll remove our wheel and get it out of the way. Now that we have our wheel removed You want to look at the face of your rotor here to make sure that this surface is not full of rust or scale, any kind of debris that's going to interfere with the mating surface on the spacer. The spacer is going to want to sit flat on this surface, and that way when you drive down the road you won't feel any kind of vibrations. So now that ours is pretty clean, let's get started in installing our spacer. So now we have our spacer. These lug nuts that come with the spacer, we're going to use these on our stock lugs there. So I'm going to remove these before putting the spacer on. And now that we have these off, now I'm ready to put the spacer onto the hub. Now that we have our rotor face clean, we're ready to install our spacer. You want to use some kind of thread locker to put on to the old wheel studs. That way you make sure when you torque these, they're going to stay nice and tight. Now we're ready to install our wheel spacer onto our hub and install the lug nuts that are provided. I'm going to run them all on, and then we'll end up torquing them. With our torque wrench to manufacturer's specifications. Once you get all the lugs on, you're going to want to check around the face between the two mating surfaces to make sure everything is seated flat. Again, if it's not, you're going to have some kind of vibration when you're driving it down the road. This looks pretty good. So now I have them all snug just by hand. I'm going to proceed to torque to manufacturer's spec. So now I'm ready to torque the spacer onto the hub. If you're by yourself, you can use a pry bar and you can wedge it between the two studs. And pretty much like that. That'll hold the hub from spinning while you torque it. This manufacturer spec on this torque is 130 foot-pounds. If you have somebody with you, they can go in and push on the brake pedal too. That's always an option. I'm by myself. So I'm going to torque the spacer. And you want to go in a star pattern. When you torque, you just don't want to go completely around it. Now, a good rule of thumb now, what I will do is I will just double check every one just to make sure you don't miss one. And now our spacer's torqued. Now we can start by putting our wheel back on. Now that we have our hub spacer on, torqued, we're going to install our wheel. I'm going to roll the wheel over and try to line the lugs up before I go and try to lift it up. Now that we have our wheel on, restart our lugs. Now that I got them hand tight, I'm gonna grab my impact gun and just hit them a tiny bit just to get them snug, and then we'll let the truck down and then we'll torque our lugs. Now that we snugged them by hand, use my gun Just give them a little bit of tightness. Now I can remove my jack stand and my jack, let the truck down, and then torque the lugs to the manufacturer's specs. Now I'm going to remove the jack stand. Let the vehicle down. Now we'll get our torque wrench and torque our lugs. Now that we have our truck down on the ground, we're going to be able to torque our lugs. You want to torque the lugs to the manufacturer's specifications. On our vehicle, it's 130. So I'm going to start by torquing the lugs. And I'm going to do it in a star pattern. Again, I like to go around, just double check them, make sure I didn't miss any. Now we're going to repeat the same procedure and same installation on each wheel. That wraps up our review and install of our Supreme Suspension 2-inch Pro Billet hub and wheel spacers in black for 12 to 18 Ram 1500s. Thank you for watching, and for everything Ram, keep it here at AmericanTrucks.com.